We have a love language. We have a sex language.
We have a sex language, yes. Thank you, Jesus, for sex language. Hallelujah.
So fun.
I want a sex language, Jesus.
What is
I want to speak in sex language.
You must
We can all have a great sex life. Christ died so we can have great sex.
You won't believe what triggered Joni Lamb to divorce her husband instantly. The shocking event behind closed doors changed everything in an instant. Secrets, betrayal, and a twist nobody saw coming. This story goes far beyond the headlines. What really happened that made her walk away without hesitation? Stay tuned, because the truth will leave you stunned and questioning everything you thought you knew. The marriage between Joni Lamb and Doug Weiss, once seen as a shining example of love and faith, slowly began to show signs of strain that few people noticed at first. For years, Joni and Doug were viewed as a strong and united couple, deeply committed to their faith and ministry. Their relationship was presented to the public as a story of healing and new beginnings. Especially after the passing of Marcus Lamb, fans admired them, believing they had found happiness and stability. However, behind the scenes, things were very different. At the beginning, the signs were subtle. Small changes in how they interacted during public events, less frequent appearances together, and a growing silence on social media. People who had followed their journey closely started to pick up on the tension. Doug, who had built his career as a respected Christian counselor, began appearing less often alongside Joni. When they were together, their chemistry seemed off. It wasn't the warm, connected couple everyone remembered. Instead, there was a noticeable distance, tight smiles, and avoided eye contact. Fans initially brushed this off, thinking every marriage has its ups and downs. But as time passed, the cracks in their relationship became harder to ignore. Rumors started circulating about the pressures Doug faced being in the public eye. He had spent years helping couples behind closed doors, but stepping into the spotlight of Christian television was a different challenge altogether. The scrutiny was intense. Every word, every move was analyzed and judged. Some insiders believed this pressure weighed heavily on Doug and affected his ability to maintain a healthy relationship with Joni. Yet, that wasn't the only speculation. Whispers about legal troubles and financial difficulties related to Doug's counseling practice began to emerge. Although no official confirmation was made, these rumors raised questions about whether Joni was aware of these issues before they married, or if they came as a shock later on. Additionally, sources close to the couple hinted at disagreements about the future of their ministry work. Joni had dedicated decades to building Daystar and continuing Marcus Lamb's legacy, while Doug reportedly wanted a larger role and more influence over the network's direction. These differing visions apparently caused friction behind closed doors. Some believed this clash of leadership styles and goals contributed to the growing distance between them. The public was left with more questions than answers, watching as a once-admired couple seemed to drift apart. As these rumors grew louder, both Joni and Doug remained silent, refusing to address the speculation directly. This silence only fueled further doubts among fans and observers, who wondered if the couple was trying to protect their privacy or hide deeper issues. When news surfaced that Doug had quietly moved out of their shared home, it became clear the marriage had been struggling far longer than anyone realized. Joni's intense focus on her ministry work while avoiding questions about her personal life added to the sense of secrecy. For many supporters, the reality was heartbreaking. The fairy tale of a faith-driven, healing marriage was unraveling quietly, leaving fans confused and saddened. The story of Joni and Doug's relationship became one filled with tension, unanswered questions, and the painful recognition that not everything is as perfect as it seems. Behind the smiles and public appearances, a marriage was under strain, and the speculations surrounding their relationship painted a picture of a love facing serious challenges. The impact of rumors, silence, and separation in the life of Joni Lamb and Doug Weiss has been profound and far-reaching, affecting not only their personal lives, but also their public image and the ministry they both represent. For years, Joni and Doug were seen as a united front, a couple grounded in faith and dedicated to continuing the legacy of the Daystar network. However, beneath the surface, the seeds of discord were quietly growing, nurtured by unanswered questions, unspoken truths, and the weight of public scrutiny. Rumors are a powerful force, especially in the world of public figures. They spread quickly, often with little regard for facts or context, shaping perceptions in ways that are difficult to control. In the case of Joni and Doug, the rumors began subtly, small whispers of tension, hints of disagreements, suggestions of legal and financial troubles involving Doug. These whispers were enough to plant doubt in the minds of fans and followers, who had previously admired their story as one of hope and renewal. Rumors can be toxic. They poison trust, create divisions, and cast shadows over even the strongest of relationships. The silence from both Joni and Doug in the face of these rumors only amplified their power. When the public sees two people refusing to address swirling speculation, the natural assumption is that there is truth behind the rumors. Silence can be a form of communication, one that speaks louder than words. For Joni and Doug, their quietness sent a message of uncertainty and confusion, leaving their supporters and critics alike to fill in the blanks with their own assumptions and stories. This silence became a breeding ground for anxiety and mistrust, both within their circle and among the wider Christian community that looked up to them.
About the sexual text, what he would do to you, and I don't want to say that.
We talked about sex.
I don't tell people what
we talked
you read out
about
to me,
sex,
and
like
see,
two
and I
adults
won't
would.
know.
But he never sexted me. He never said anything inappropriate. We didn't have sex until we got
can I
married.
finish?
He is known for his integrity.
This is just sexual talk.
When Joni had told me those things, again shoving them down
Told you what things?
about the text he was sending you, and you were happy, and I didn't know how to process it.
What text?
About the sexual text, what he would do to you, and I don't want to say that.
What text? We talked about sex.
I don't tell people what
we talked
you read out
about
to me,
sex,
and
like
see,
two
and I
adults
won't
would.
know.
But he never sexted me. He never said anything inappropriate. We didn't have sex until we got
can I
married.
finish?
He is known for his integrity.
This is just sexual talk.
Okay, that's
what
not
she's
even
talking
it.
about.
This is not even it, okay? So, when she starts telling me about that, I'm keeping it to myself. I'm really starting to get stressed. Things are not sitting well. My body's starting to get really acting up. That's when my panic attacks started happening.
Because I was saying that when you got the text.
When she was reading all this stuff to me. And Rachel and Beck on the other side were, like, what's going on? I'm not telling them not one word about that. Not about that. When Jimmy comes in the picture as the one she trusted, after that, before we all six met with Jimmy Evans, I called Jimmy privately because I didn't want to dishonor her or talk about that in front of her other children. I called Jimmy privately the day before the meeting, and he will attest to this, and I said, hey, this is something I don't know how to process. Can you help me process it? Is this okay?
Separation was the inevitable result of this growing divide. Reports surfaced that Doug had quietly moved out of their shared home, signaling that their marriage was in serious trouble long before any official announcement. Separation is never an easy path, especially when the world is watching and judging every step. For Joni and Doug, the separation marked not just the end of a marriage, but the beginning of a new chapter filled with challenges and heartbreak. Living apart meant facing the reality that their relationship could no longer sustain itself, despite years of public appearances suggesting otherwise. The emotional toll of this process cannot be overstated. Joni, a woman who had spent decades building a ministry around faith, healing, and family, suddenly found herself grappling with personal loss and public scrutiny at the same time. The divorce was not just a private sorrow, but a public event, dissected by media outlets, supporters, and detractors. Every statement she made, every public appearance, was analyzed for signs of weakness or strength. The pressure to maintain a composed and faithful image was immense, yet behind the scenes, she was processing grief, disappointment, and the pain of what once was. Doug's situation was equally complicated. As a respected Christian counselor, his role was to guide couples through struggles, to provide wisdom and support. But when his own marriage faltered, his credibility came under question. Rumors about his past financial and legal troubles emerged, casting shadows over his professional reputation. For Doug, the combination of personal loss and public doubt was a heavy burden. The man who once stood as a pillar of guidance found himself needing support. Yet the very community he served was quick to judge and speculate. The broader ministry also felt the effects of their struggles. Daystar, built on the foundation of faith, family, and legacy, suddenly faced questions about leadership stability and the future direction of the network. Supporters who once rallied behind Joni and Doug now found themselves confused, disappointed, or even disillusioned. The trust that had been carefully cultivated over the years was tested, as were the assumptions about the personal lives of those who lead. Ministry is not just about public ministry, but also about personal example, and when the personal cracks show, it impacts the entire community. Amid the rumors, silence, and separation, the Christian community was left to wrestle with difficult questions. How do you reconcile faith with failure? How do you support leaders who falter without abandoning them? And how do you protect the integrity of a ministry when the personal lives of its leaders become headline news? These questions are not easily answered, and for many, they remain ongoing struggles. The journey through this painful chapter also highlighted the complexity of public life. Private pain, when exposed to public view, becomes magnified. The emotional weight carried by Joni and Doug was not theirs alone. It was felt by their families, their colleagues, and their followers. The Christian community, which often prides itself on compassion and understanding, found itself caught between supporting their leaders and grappling with disappointment. In the end, the impact of rumors, silence, and separation on Joni Lamb and Doug Weiss serves as a reminder that behind every public figure is a human being dealing with real struggles. It reveals the fragile nature of reputation and the challenges of balancing personal pain with public expectation. While the full truth of what transpired may never be known, the effects of these experiences are clear. Lives changed, trust tested, and a ministry forever altered. The path forward is uncertain, but one thing remains: the need for grace, healing, and honesty in the face of hardship. The public and private fallout of the divorce between Joni Lamb and Doug Weiss has been a dramatic and deeply personal saga, one that has touched not only their own lives, but also the wider community that looked up to them. For years, Joni and Doug were seen as a beacon of faith, love, and stability, a powerful couple who had managed to find happiness and strength in the face of loss and adversity. Their story was one of hope, a woman rising after the death of her first husband, a man stepping into a new chapter with grace and wisdom. But beneath the surface, tensions had been growing, and when the divorce became public, those cracks were exposed for all to see. The announcement of their split shocked many fans and followers. For a long time, the public had been given an image of unity and partnership, a marriage that seemed strong and filled with shared purpose. Joni, as the co-founder of Daystar and a prominent figure in Christian broadcasting, had carefully crafted a narrative of faith-driven perseverance. Doug, known for his counseling work, was seen as a steadying influence, someone who supported Joni and shared in the ministry's mission. The divorce shattered that image and left people wondering what really happened behind the scenes. In the private realm, the divorce was a wrenching experience. Joni was forced to confront the painful reality that the marriage she had invested in, both emotionally and spiritually, was ending. It was more than just the loss of a partner. It was the loss of a future she had hoped for, a vision she believed was guided by divine purpose. She had publicly shared her journey of healing and new beginnings after Marcus Lamb's death, and now that narrative was upended. The emotional toll was immense, compounded by the fact that this deeply personal upheaval was unfolding in the spotlight of public attention. Joni's private grief was made all the more complex by the demands of her public role. As a leader and public figure, she was expected to remain composed, to offer faith and hope, even while dealing with her own heartbreak. Every word she spoke, every gesture, was scrutinized by media and fans alike. The pressure to maintain an image of unwavering strength was immense. Yet beneath the carefully curated facade, Joni was navigating sorrow, confusion, and the challenge of rebuilding her life from the ground up. The gap between public perception and private reality was stark. Doug Weiss, too, faced significant challenges in the wake of the divorce. As a respected Christian counselor, his work revolved around helping couples overcome difficulties, fostering understanding and healing. The irony of his own marriage's breakdown was not lost on anyone. His credibility came under intense scrutiny, as many wondered how someone with his expertise could not save his own relationship. Rumors began to swirl about Doug's past, with whispers of financial troubles and legal issues adding layers of complexity and casting shadows over his reputation. The public's reaction to Doug's situation was mixed. Some supporters stood firmly by him, arguing that marriages end for many reasons and that private struggles should not be fodder for judgment. Others were less forgiving, speculating about hidden scandals and accusing him of deception. The rumors, whether founded or not, created a cloud of suspicion that followed Doug even as he tried to maintain a low profile. His social media presence faded, and invitations to speak or appear at events diminished, signaling a professional and personal setback. The strain between Joni and Doug inevitably affected those around them as well. Joni's children, who had embraced Doug as part of their family, found themselves caught in the middle. They had hoped for a positive new chapter for their mother, yet they now had to witness the unraveling of what they once believed was a strong marriage. Their loyalty to Joni was clear, but so was their pain. Protecting her from the harsh judgment of the public and the media became a priority, even as they grappled with their own feelings of loss and confusion. The wider Christian community was also deeply affected. For many, Joni and Doug were not just public figures but spiritual leaders whose example mattered. The divorce raised difficult questions about faith, forgiveness, and leadership. How does one reconcile personal failure with public ministry? What does it mean for a community when its leaders falter? These questions stirred intense debate, with some expressing compassion and understanding, while others voiced disappointment and skepticism. Media outlets were quick to cover every angle of the story, fueling speculation and amplifying the drama. Headlines ranged from sympathetic to sensational, and the constant spotlight made it difficult for either Joni or Doug to find peace. The media's relentless coverage intensified the scrutiny and made the healing process more complicated. What might have been a private journey became a public spectacle, with every detail dissected and debated. The legal aspects of the fallout added another layer of difficulty. Rumors about Doug facing investigations for financial misconduct related to his counseling practice circulated widely. Although no formal charges were confirmed, the mere suggestion of legal troubles was enough to damage reputations and deepen the divide between Joni and Doug. The possibility of legal battles added stress and uncertainty, complicating what was already an emotionally charged situation. Joni's focus shifted toward protecting her ministry and preserving the legacy she and Marcus had built. The Daystar Network, which had been a cornerstone of her life's work, was vulnerable to the ripple effects of her personal crisis. She faced the challenge of reassuring supporters and colleagues while maintaining her own strength. The need to separate her personal struggles from her public role became a delicate balancing act. For Doug, the fallout meant reassessing his role within the ministry and his public life. The potential loss of credibility and opportunities was a heavy burden. He faced not only the end of his marriage, but also the possibility of professional isolation. The intersection of personal pain and public judgment was a difficult space to navigate. Despite the turmoil, there were moments of grace and resilience. Both Joni and Doug showed a desire to move forward, to heal, and to find a path beyond the divorce. Their journeys were reminders that even in the midst of public scrutiny and personal loss, there is hope for restoration and new beginnings. The divorce and its aftermath serve as a powerful story about the human side of public figures. Behind the headlines are people grappling with real emotions, making difficult decisions, and seeking peace. The public and private fallout from Joni and Doug's separation highlights the complexities of faith, love, leadership, and forgiveness. As the dust settles, questions remain. How will Joni rebuild her life and ministry? What will Doug's future hold? Can the wounds of the past be healed in the light of public attention? These are ongoing stories, filled with uncertainty, but also with the possibility of redemption. In the end, the divorce of Joni Lamb and Doug Weiss is more than just a personal tragedy. It is a reflection of the challenges faced by those who live their lives in the public eye, balancing faith and fame, love and leadership. It reminds us that even the strongest among us are vulnerable, and that the journey toward healing is often long and complex. The story of Joni Lamb and Doug Weiss took an even darker turn as rumors of scandal and legal troubles began to swirl, casting a long shadow over their lives and the future of their ministry. What had started as a personal struggle between two individuals quickly escalated into a public spectacle that threatened to unravel everything they had worked so hard to build. The weight of these issues extended far beyond just their marriage. It touched their reputations, their careers, and the very foundation of the Daystar Network. As whispers about Doug's possible legal problems surfaced, the Christian community was caught off guard. Doug Weiss, known for years as a respected marriage counselor and a figure of stability, suddenly found himself facing accusations that many struggled to reconcile with his public image. There was talk of financial misconduct connected to his counseling practice, allegations that he might have mishandled funds or been involved in questionable business dealings. Though nothing was officially confirmed in court at the time, the rumors alone were enough to cause widespread concern and speculation. Doug's once solid standing within the Christian counseling world began to crumble. Invitations to speak at conferences dwindled, appearances on Christian television became scarce, and his social media presence faded into near silence. It was as if overnight, the man who had spent decades building a reputation on trust and integrity was now trying to avoid the spotlight, hiding from the mounting pressure. For someone so accustomed to guiding others through emotional crises, this reversal was particularly cruel and disheartening. Joni, meanwhile, faced her own personal and professional battles. She had to contend not only with the emotional pain of her failing marriage, but also with the potential fallout from Doug's legal situation. As a high-profile leader of the Daystar Network, any scandal attached to her husband risked reflecting poorly on her and the ministry. The pressure to manage the optics while dealing with her own heartbreak was immense. She was in a position where every public statement was scrutinized, and every silence interpreted as a sign of guilt or cover-up. Insiders close to Joni revealed that she was in shock, struggling to process the rapid unraveling of her life. What had once been a story of hope and new beginnings had become a nightmare of betrayal and uncertainty. She had invested not only love, but also significant effort into maintaining a public image of faithfulness and strength. And now it felt like the rug had been pulled out from under her. The media, always hungry for drama, seized on every detail, amplifying rumors and speculation, often without concrete evidence. The combination of divorce and legal accusations created a perfect storm that few could have predicted. For Joni, it meant reevaluating her priorities and considering how to protect both her personal well-being and the legacy of the ministry she helped build alongside Marcus Lamb. The possibility that Doug's troubles might damage the network's reputation was a source of constant worry. She found herself walking a tightrope, trying to maintain faith and hope publicly while privately grappling with doubt and fear. Doug, on the other hand, faced the reality of a public fall from grace. The counselor, who once advised countless couples on maintaining healthy relationships, was now under intense scrutiny about his own personal and professional ethics. Friends and supporters of Doug came to his defense, suggesting that he was being unfairly targeted, possibly as a result of jealousy or internal politics within the Christian media sphere. They argued that marriages end for complex reasons and that legal troubles are not always clear-cut indictments of guilt.